Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Initiation Portal. In this powerful ceremonial space, we recognize that during today's catalyzing times, humanity is once again gaining access to wisdom that has been hidden away, suppressed, and shamed for millennia. Our presenters and performers have gathered here to provide an immersion into the ancient knowledge that has been lost for so long. So as you attend, you are invited to open up your senses, open up your awareness to the unseen and the numinous realms. Allow these workshops and performances to shift your consciousness and guide you into entirely new dimensions of what you perceive possible to create, embody, and transform. And today I am honored and excited to speak with Omari Martin. Welcome, Omari.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much for being a part of this event.
Welcome.
And let me introduce you to everybody here. So Omari is a certified professional astrologer and life member with the American Federation of Astrologers, life member with the Organization for Professional Astrology. He has a level 1 certification with the National Council of Geocosmic Research, Professional Astrologers Alliance. He's president of the Friends of Astrology, Inc., founded in 1938. He is treasurer of the Astrology News Service and chairman of the board of Kepler College of the Astrological Arts and Sciences. He is a certified teacher with the Church of Light, Brotherhood of Light, and is a certified practitioner of integrative neurolinguistic programming. Currently, he is pursuing a PhD in business management in accounting at Capella University. Omari teaches accounting and finance classes in a traditional classroom and online, and he teaches astrology. He is the owner of Solar Wisdom, which offers clients an opportunity to become more self-aware, gain insight, and answer questions, resulting in peace and happiness on their terms, and Astropreneurship that provides consulting and coaching services to astrologers and other entrepreneurs for business development, profitability, and long-term strategic growth coupled with astrology. And you can learn more about Omari on his website, which is www.solar, S-O-U-L-A-R, wisdom.com. And so, Omari, I'm so excited to dive into your topic for today, which is a new model for higher education to achieve world peace. Very exciting. And I would love to begin by just asking you a couple questions so we can get to know you a bit more.
Okay.
Could you share with us one or two key learnings that you've gained on your path to doing this work?
One key learning that I've learned on my path of doing this work is to really take time to engage in self-reflection. And inside those moments of self-reflection, afford your entire beingness to grow. And yes, we all make mistakes. Don't beat yourself up about it. Be forgiving, but nevertheless, inside of those moments of self-reflection, afford yourself the opportunity to grow, perhaps even transform. And a second key learning, believe in yourself. Believe in you when it seems that no one else in the world will, but allow that belief to be based on reality.
Wow, very powerful. Thank you for these. And I love that reminder about self-reflection, and astrology is such a powerful mirror for us to be able to do that for sure. Yeah, beautiful. And could you share with us as well, what is your vision for 2021 and beyond?
Oh, my vision for 2021 and beyond. Well, some of you may remember that song, I think from the late 60s, early 70s, by the Fifth Dimension. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And so, with that, Aquarius is the zodiac sign for humanity or the humanitarian. And so, I think it's an opportunity for the world to move forward as one. Of course, we know there's a lot of work for us to do with all of our differences and all these other things we create to segregate ourselves from one another. But when you remove all of this stuff and stop listening to the noise, we really are one human family. We are as one. And what's so, no matter what language the person is, what gender, no matter the color of their skin or the country they were born in, we all really want the same things. We do. as a collective humanity, if you will. We all want the same things, and so yeah, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and that's what I see starting in about 30 days, where we have Jupiter and Saturn will form a great conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So that 0 degrees, it's a new beginning. It's a new beginning. Most of us are well aware of what's happening in the United States of America at this time. And so it's time for a new beginning. Again, for everyone, not just one group of people more so than another group of people, but for everyone. This is the age of Aquarius, the age of humanity, humanitarian efforts. So all are taken care of, the benefit of all.
Wow. Yeah, a big yes to that. I had chills as you were speaking. And yes, we are one human family. And it's extremely powerful, this Jupiter Saturn conjunction that's coming. I know you're going to tell us more about this, but I do want to just say we're recording this, as you mentioned, on November 20th. So exactly 1 month before that conjunction. Very powerful to think it's coming so soon.
Yes, it is. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I will turn it over to you. I know you have a presentation to share with us, so go right ahead.
Yes.
You have the
Okay.
stage.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. There it is. Okay. So, okay. There we are. Okay. So, to really honor the theme that Jocelyn has presented to us, embracing the mystery to catalyze our visionary future. So I took a few moments to think about that and to really think of something that would nicely fit that as a theme. And what I came up with was a new model for higher education to achieve world peace or supporting world peace. So let's start with what is education? So here are a few definitions. So one from Oxford Languages, education is the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. It's an enlightening experience. According to John Dewey, education is a process of living through a continuous reconstruction of experiences. So the definition of modern education can be said as the act or process of imparting the knowledge about our present world or society. And according to Socrates, and we certainly know who he is or was, education means the bringing out of the ideas of universal validity, which are latent in the mind of every man. And that last quote from Socrates actually speaks to what I was just saying about universality, or here the universal validity, which is latent in the mind of every man. And so, with that, what is the main purpose of education? So, the main purpose of education is to educate individuals within society, to prepare and qualify them for work and economy, as well as to integrate people into society and to teach them values and morals of society. One of the education essential tasks is to enable people to understand themselves, and education develops a country's economy and society. Therefore, education is the milestone of a nation's development. So now that we've taken just a few moments to really explore what education is and what the main purpose of education is, I would propose some tenets of education, which stems from those definitions we just saw. So it's an enlightening experience. Education is a continuous reconstruction of experiences. Education is the knowledge about our present world and society. It is, in and of itself, an essential task that exists to enable people to understand themselves. It is the milestone of a nation's development. And also, it involves the bringing out of the ideas of universal validity. So I present that as tenets of education and looking at that to prompt a paradigm shift proposal for education. So, with this paradigm shift, higher education is free. Learning about a different culture is promoted. Learning about the planet as a host of ecosystems, recognizing that everything really is interconnected, and one piece to some extent does depend on another piece or another component of the entire ecosystem. Also recognizing a college degree is worth more than simply getting a job. Recognizing, there's a process and that the college degree, so to speak, is the outcome, and in turn, getting a job is the outcome, is an outcome. Also, shifting the paradigm, vocational training is equally important as academic training. Also, with this paradigm shift, shaping values that support humanity as a whole, and also students learning about self through the lens of astrology. So, with these various points here, I take a moment to present this as a paradigm shift proposal for education. Now, I think most of you, if not all of you, look at these points about this paradigm shift and think, oh, that's wonderful, especially the first point in that higher education is free. But when we think about this paradigm shift, we want to keep in mind that the paradigm shift is not free. So the question becomes, how will we finance this? Where will the money come from in order to finance this paradigm shift for education? The money certainly won't come out of the clear blue sky. Now, with that, let's take a look at government spending. Now, the U.S. Department of Defense fiscal year 2021 budget proposal is $705.4 billion dollars. And this budget resources four focus areas to build a more lethal, agile, and innovative joint force. Now, the fiscal year 2021 budget includes $66.6 billion dollars in new discretionary budget authority for the Department of Education. And that represents a 6.1 billion or 8.4% reduction below the fiscal year 2020 appropriation. So let's look at not just government spending, but also the values that government spending represents. So, generally speaking, all of us, everyone in this very moment, we all spend our money on what we value, and the government is no different. So, here, the US Department of Defense fiscal year 2021 budget proposal is $705.4 billion dollars. The U.S. Department of Education fiscal year 2021 budget proposal is $66.6 billion dollars. The federal government spends 10 times more on defense than it does on education. With that, I present to you two rhetorical questions. One, what does the federal government value based on this information? The second question, is it possible to reallocate some government spending to support education? Now, the reallocation of some of that government spending to support education would definitely help to finance that paradigm shift proposal that was previously presented to you. Now, the initiation portal, embracing the mystery to catalyze our visionary future. So now we're going to take a look at some astrology. And mentioned earlier is the great conjunction of Jupiter Saturn. It's coming up in literally 30 days. And it's a conjunction. Well, a conjunction occurs when two planets are at the same degree and minute of arc in the same zodiac sign. The great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn is one that occurs approximately every 20 years. And according to Minch, these two planets in conjunction signify startling situations in the affairs of all lands. It will have a constrictive effect on business and cause a tightening up and down trend in the economy. Now, some historical facts of higher education in the United States will be identified relative to four great conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn, which occurred in 1941, 1961, 1980, and 2000, and some potential events for 2020 will be forecasted. So here we have the conjunction that occurred in 1941. It occurred at 9 degrees of Taurus in 1941. And later that year in December, we know that the US entered World War II after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. A consequence of declaring war is enlisting or drafting young men into the military. Well, at that time, men, not women, primarily attended colleges and universities as students, served as faculty and administrators, and this would potentially strain resources. For example, a decrease in student enrollment would result in lower tuition revenue. For another example, human resources, faculty and administrators may have been strained as well. Some of you may be wondering, well, what is the connection? Well, let's take a look at what Jupiter rules. So in a flat chart, Jupiter rules the ninth house. The ninth house is the house of long distance travel, um, churches and the clergy, lawyers and judges, universities, professors, scientific societies and institutions. It also rules the Secretary of State and immigration. And so here, in that Jupiter rules the ninth house, this particular conjunction, this is how it directly impacted higher education at this time in the history of the US. Then 20 years later, approximately 20 years later, these two planets formed a conjunction once again. And in 1962, the US Supreme Court, which is ruled by the planet Jupiter, ruled in the case of Engel versus Vitale that it is unconstitutional for state officials to compose an official prayer and encourage its recitation in public schools. Well, the Supreme Court is ruled by Jupiter. And when the Supreme Court makes a ruling or determination, that is actually Saturn. So in the chart of the United States that, well, I'll just keep it general. So the conjunction occurred in the ninth house of higher education, long distance travel, and religion. Again, the US Supreme Court, that's Jupiter, which makes the final determination for the laws, that's Jupiter of the country. Rules are ruled by Saturn. School prayer is Jupiter, and that school prayer was against the law. That's Jupiter. So here, just with this incident in the year 1961, these two planets are at play with one another. And this is one way it actually, if you will, manifested on the Earth plane. Now, these two planets were forming a separating opposition to natal Mercury at 24 degrees of Cancer, which rules the fifth house and covers children or young people in school buildings where they are taught. So again, the ruling was that school officials could not compose official prayer to encourage its recitation in public schools or public school buildings. And so after 1961, approximately 20 years later, these two planets, once again, Jupiter and Saturn, do their dance in the sky where they meet up and form a conjunction. And so this time it happened at 9 degrees of Libra, cardinal air. And while it actually occurred on December 31st of 1980, a little bit prior to that, in October of 1979, then President Jimmy Carter signed into law the Department of Education Organization Act. However, the Department of Education began operating the following year on May 4th of 1980. Now, President Jimmy Carter signed into law, that's Jupiter, the Refugee Act of 1980, which reformed immigration law. Well, immigration is Jupiter ruled, and well, immigration law would also be Jupiter ruled because that involves long distance travel. And this law was created to admit refugees for humanitarian, which would be Saturn and Aquarius reasons. It raised the ceiling for the number of refugees and provided for their effective resettlement and to assist them to achieve economic self-sufficiency after arrival in the United States. Then President Carter also signed the Refugee Educational Assistance Act of 1980, which brought Cuban and Haitian refugees to the US. It provided general assistance to local educational agencies for the education of Cuban and Haitian refugee children. So, yet again, just the Refugee Educational Assistance Act of 1980 is clearly a Jupiter Saturn thing, where this particular law or legislation was signed into law as this particular act. So that's 1980. So we move forward again another 20 years. And at this time, the conjunction between the two planets occurred at 22 degrees of Taurus. And history does have a way of repeating itself. So in 2000, the US Supreme Court ruled in the case of the Santa Fe School District versus Doe that the district's policy of allowing student-led prayer prior to football games violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. So the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment establishes the separation of church and state. And then the following year in 2001, then President George W. Bush signed into law the No Child Left Behind Act. And so again, you can see that with the conjunction of these two planets, every 20 years, there was some impact, something was happening with education or higher education in some shape, form, or fashion. As you can see, the court system was generally involved with that, with some new law or some new policy or regulation or what have you. And so now, the year 2020, these two planets meet again at 0 degrees of Aquarius on December 21st. And it just so happens again that it occurs in the ninth house of religion, legal matters, and universities and professors of the US chart with 7 degrees Gemini rising. So I do want to share, I'm aware that there are a handful of charts that one can use when looking at the birth chart of the United States. This happens to be one that I chose to work with based on my familiarity with it. And so again, this conjunction, it occurs at the ingress point of Aquarius, and this could represent some type of new beginning for higher education for all. Many say this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. It is appropriate to note the conjunction occurs in Aquarius, the sign of the humanitarian, and perhaps issues related to higher education may be addressed from this perspective. So, what are some of the potential issues that may start to unfold with this conjunction? Well, one is the burden of student loan debt. Um, Millions of people, well, hundreds of thousands of people owe billions of dollars billions of dollars of student loan debt. Some have borrowed so much money that it may interfere with the possibility of them owning a home. Some people may even make the choice to postpone starting a family because they are concerned about this student loan debt. The student loan debt issue is really highlighted, particularly when a student graduates, you now have the degree, and now are you able to find gainful employment doing what you went to school for so that you can take some of that income and pay the loan back, pay it off, and do so in a timely manner? And then number two, foreign students attending US universities. So earlier this year, the Trump administration again, I don't know if it was some executive order or some other policy position in the moment, but the Trump administration restricted the ability of students from foreign countries returning to the United States to continue their academic studies. The problem or issue with that is that some colleges and universities have a sizable population of students from foreign countries. And if those students were not allowed or unable to come back to start school and to start on time, that would have an adverse impact on that particular university's tuition revenue. Let me just say that. Also, another issue is public funding for higher education. Uh, Perhaps a new model is in order to fund public education. So, for example, in the K through 12 system for public education, property taxes are actually used to fund public education at that level. Perhaps a new model needs to be created for funding, particularly in urban areas or inner cities. Another issue, mergers and acquisitions of universities and colleges. I've said this previously. I wonder, is the number of suppliers of higher education, are there too many colleges and universities to begin with? There are only so many students. And so, with that, will that prompt mergers and acquisitions of universities and colleges? To some degree, that has already started happening. I've previously shared that, um, let's see, Strayer University and Capella University, and while both of those schools are part of the for profit sector of higher education, a couple of years ago, they did come together and they formed a merger. And without question, when two firms, whether they're universities or not, come together and merge, they do so for survival so that the combined entities can continue as going concerns, so that they can continue as businesses, making money for the shareholders. And then the fifth point is the employment of adjunct faculty. So even at this time, based on some research I've done recently, 75.5% of all college faculty are off the tenure track. And it represents like 1.3 million out of 1.8 million faculty members who are in that situation. And when you look at this compared to the 1950s and 1960s, the standard path, generally speaking, is that a faculty member would be full time, but on the tenure track. And over the past 40 to 50 years, that has changed. So, based on some reading I've done with the Academia Stack Exchange.com, the reason adjuncts are paid so little is that colleges and universities have become businesses and have adopted the neoclassical economic and neoliberal political positions that encourage the exploitation of workers. And so, while these are some of the issues, again, when we just think about the paradigm shift proposal that was presented earlier, that paradigm shift proposal can potentially address some of these issues, if not quote unquote solve it as a problem. And so let's just take a look at the Jupiter Saturn 20-year dance from this point forward. So, August 2024, these two planets form a square, and the square aspects indicate challenge, action, dynamic tension, resistance, and turning points. Now, it'll happen in August of that year, and then literally like 2 months later will be the next presidential election. And so that will most likely be, I anticipate that education, higher education, may be a part of the platform for the individuals running for president of the United States. And that may even blend into gubernatorial races for various states across the country at that time. And then about 2 years later, August 31st of 2026, the two planets form a trine aspect. And also again, July 11th of 2027, these two planets form a trine aspect. And the trine aspects indicate flow and ease, idealism, inspiration, and harmony. So with the trine aspect, I would anticipate some type of relief, if you will, for those in higher education. Maybe we may see many more student loan debt forgiveness programs or opportunities where those who have a certain amount of student loan debt can work for the federal government or maybe a state government for 5 years or 10 years or what have you. And a benefit of that is that a portion, ideally all, of their student loan debt will be forgiven. And if so, that would address or help to address the issue of the burden of student loan debt. And so after the trine aspect, we have the opposition. And these are the various dates for the opposition in their respective positions in the sky. And so the opposition indicates awareness, outreach, balance, cooperation, and conflict. And so here, as you can see, the first two oppositions between these planets occur in Scorpio and Taurus. We know Scorpio and Taurus are fixed planets. So it could be that neither side of the argument will do much to shift. And possibly in 2030 and 2031 the two planets will still form oppositions, but the oppositions will occur in Sagittarius and Gemini. And we know Sagittarius and Gemini to be the adaptable signs of the zodiac or the versatile signs of the zodiac. And I anticipate that with that last opposition on October 6th of 2031 is where the ball may be moved forward, where there is some agreement and some cooperation. And the good thing is that Jupiter rules Sagittarius. And in that, again, that's associated with the ninth house. I anticipate that whatever the agreement or the cooperation or the balance that is reached, the higher education sector and those who are in favor of it will come out on top. And then there's the second trine. And again, February 2034, November 2034, December 2034. And again, the trine aspect indicates flow and ease, idealism, inspiration, and harmony. And I anticipate that this would be an additional easy period. So maybe some of the issues that were not addressed with the opposition or some adjustments, additional adjustments that need to be made as a result of the cooperation that needed to occur with that opposition, I think that would be addressed with respect to this second trine. And then they form that last square. These two planets form that last square. And they duke it out one last time, April 2035, October 2035, and then finally October of 2036. And so here, the last square, these two planets are in Taurus and Leo. And um, so with this square in these fixed signs, it could be that some additional changes that some who are in favor of the changes that I have implied here today, those who are sitting on that side of the argument who want those implied changes to occur, it could be that with this final square of these two planets, that does not occur. We know that Taurus moves very slow, and Leo can take a position and be almost self-righteous with the position that is taken. And then October 31st of 2040, 20 years from today, we see that these two planets form yet another conjunction in the sky at 17 degrees of Libra and 56 minutes. And then those two planets will do that dance all over again. And so for those of you who are wondering, why didn't he give any attention to the sextiles? Well, for the sake of brevity and to economize on space, the emphasis was placed on the square, the trine, the opposition, and the conjunction. Okay, so here I present a future vision for higher education. Higher education is free. What does that mean? No student loan debt. Learning about a different culture is promoted, and this can help to facilitate an appreciation and respect for differences based on mutual understanding. And so, some of you may have been involved with, or you may have heard about student exchange programs, where as a student over the summer for maybe 2 to 3 weeks, you may have lived with a family in a foreign country. Well, with this, learning about a different culture being promoted, let's say maybe students spend an entire semester at a different university in a foreign country. How about that as an opportunity to appreciate and respect differences based on a mutual understanding? The next point, learning about the planet as a host of ecosystems, developing an appreciation and respect for the interconnectedness of all human, all animal, all insect, and all plant life, really embracing that we need them. The insects, honeybees or bees in general, they help to pollinate our crops. We need them. And so, again, with higher education, really with that paradigm shift, teaching children very early on, and maybe also in high school, how important that the support of the ecosystem as a whole is necessary. Next, a college degree is worth more than getting a job. With that, giving focus or recognizing that focus is on the learning process and critical thinking and not just test scores. So, some who are in education, who are higher education professionals or education professionals, especially in K through 12, may have realized that over or experienced over the past 10 years, 15 years or so, how it became all about the test scores. What are the test scores? Are the test scores high? Okay, great. If they're high, give them the money. Oh, the test scores aren't good enough. Okay, get a new principal. The test scores still aren't good enough. Okay, maybe we need to close the school. The test scores, that's just an outcome. Students, in fact, and teachers alike should be present to the joy of the learning process. Next point, vocational training is equally important. It is vocational training, promoting that as a pathway to a career, recognizing academic training is equally important, but almost like balancing that out and embracing those students and encouraging them to pursue vocational training if academic training just isn't their thing or something that they have an affinity for, so to speak. Next, shaping values that support humanity as a whole. Again, the collective has and supports explicit values that tie to the collective benefit of all. And then students learn about self through the lens of astrology, and that even in education, astrology as a tool facilitates know thyself. I mean, think about it. If you, as an individual, knew about your chart, we'll say from the perspective of vocational astrology, and your parents embraced that and then involved you with school activities, extracurricular school activities, and other events that supported and were in alignment with what your birth chart says about you within the context of vocational astrology, it could be that more people, as a possibility, would be happier with their careers and what they do day in and day out. Um, And so those are the references. So Jocelyn, that concludes the presentation, and I want to open it up for you to ask me any questions or share any comments.
Yeah, thank you so much for this, Omari. This is very powerful and yeah, really incredible. A few things that stood out to me. One is to see this progression of those Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions over the years and the events that they coincided with, right? Or the events that they brought to occur. And I'm sure there was even far more you could have said there that didn't make it onto the slide as far as powerful political events and education events and so on. But
Yes.
really amazing to see that trajectory and to know that we're entering into another one of these kind of portals, these
Hmm.
initiation portals. Really, it is like that.
Hmm.
So do you, I guess one question that I have is what would you say to, to kids who are getting toward the end of high school right now? And of course, the whole educational system in general has been turned on its head this year, 2020, with many kids being virtual all year or part of the year. And
Hmm.
but as far as kids looking at higher education and looking at what we have ahead of us for the upcoming years, do you have what advice would you give them or their parents as they're thinking about this decision, like to go for higher education or not, right? Because that's such a big decision. I can remember when I was that age and I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It's so hard to decide.
Look, I didn't either. Jocelyn, look, this is what I did. I knew I wanted to go to college, and my best friend in high school at the time, we were like freaking frack, tick, and tock. So he was like, "Well, we're going to college," and he said we were going to Morehouse College or Howard University, and I was just like, "Well, okay." I literally just co-signed on it, and so the application we went to Howard. So the application from Howard University came in the mail. And this is what I did. I looked at it and they list the School of Business first because it starts with the letter B. So I said, check. The first major under the School of Business is accounting because it starts with the letter A.
Mhm.
And what did I do? Check. I'm done. So,
Yes.
so I shared that with you, Jocelyn, to validate. I didn't really know. I didn't really know. So with that, to answer your question, I would suggest that every high school student, if you're a high school junior or senior, even if you are a sophomore, go online and find one of those career interest surveys. There are dozens of them and they're free. You don't have to pay any money. Complete 2 or 3 different ones and just see what shows up for you as an individual. What's that consistent theme in terms of what your career interests are? Now, the way those interest surveys are designed, they're really designed to tease that out of you so that you get clear about that. And then share that with your parents. At the family dinner table or kitchen table or dining room, a living room on a Sunday afternoon, have that conversation with your parents. Let them know I completed this interest survey stuff, and this is what it said. And I think I'm interested in this. And it's okay for you to say you think you're interested in that because you still may not know. And so then comes the opportunity to look at different colleges and universities that have a program that's of interest to you, that fits or closely or identically matches the interests that you have identified in those interest surveys. Then there's the cost. I didn't do this. My Spanish teacher was able to get me a 4-year scholarship to go to a 4-year college. I turned it down because I wanted to go to Howard University with my best friend. Jocelyn, you should just come to Chicago and strangle me real good. But what's so is that is a very important factor. Go to the college or university that is willing to give you some money, apply for scholarships. If you qualify for grants, apply for grants. Get the free money. Go after the free money first And then in order to make the ends meet, if you have to borrow the money, borrow the money. And it could be that based on how you complete, based on your results of the career interest surveys, it could be that vocational training and development is identified for you, and pursue that as a pathway. I am an academic, as Jocelyn shared with you. I'm currently in school working on a PhD, and out of respect for my own profession, I'll even say college that pathway is not for everybody. It is not a one size fits all. It's not. And if you find that a vocational path is a better fit for you as a carpenter, mechanic, electrician, HVAC professional, that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, if you find that's a better path for you based on what you like, you pursue that path.
Yes, and so there's this other really fascinating concept that you mentioned, which is utilizing astrology to help us, align with what our natural skills are and our natural tendencies and what we will love. So I really love that you brought that up. Could you speak a little more about that?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Thank you, Jocelyn. And so, ladies and gentlemen, there are different branches of astrology, and most are familiar with natal astrology, where the astrologer will tell you about your personality. Okay, that's great. And the other branch of astrology is vocational astrology. And vocational astrology can be used to highlight the career, the work, that you have, we'll just say, planetary inclination for, if you don't mind me using the language in that way. And it can also speak to what your income prospects can be. So for example, we look at the 10th house. The 10th house is career, public standing, and achievements. So one may want to have a career as an entertainer. That's great. However, in that career field, there are different types of work you can do as an entertainer. Are you going to be a professional sports player on the National Football League or the National Basketball Association? Will you be an actor? Will you be a singer? So while all of those career choices I won't say career choice, while all of those are different activities or work activities, they all fit under the umbrella of in the entertainment field as a career. And then, of course, you look at the income. Well, if you are in the NBA on one of those basketball teams, your income earning potential is great as a young person. After age 35, and definitely 40, you got to find your way out of the league and you got to reinvent yourself. That is something that Shaquille O'Neal did. So when he left the league, he actually went back to school. He earned a doctoral degree. So now he's officially Dr. Shaquille O'Neal, and he's done some other things. I even think he wanted to be a temporary sheriff in the town where he lived at or something like that. So he reinvented himself after the league. Now, on the other hand, if you want to be, for the ladies who want to be an actress, maybe you may be like Sophia Loren, where you are an actress like all of your life from your, early 20s until your 70s or 80s, where you are now, at that time, a well-seasoned actress. I think earlier this year, Sophia Loren was on a movie on Netflix or something like that. So that particular career, well, you can be an actress your entire life. However, you can't be that as a basketball player or football player or even a professional dancer. And even for some singers, you got to keep those pipes in order. If not, the ladies can't hit that high note anymore. So you got to bring that down, and that may impact your career a little bit as well. So those are the things I think that the second house will speak to is income, and the sixth house speaks to the type of work.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. And do you offer those kinds of readings for people if there are high school students or their parents watching? Is that a possibility?
Yes, it is a possibility. So for the parents who are watching, I'd certainly love an opportunity to use astrology as a tool to gain insight into your or your child's personality and behavior. And based on what was discussed today, can certainly look at it through the lens of vocational astrology to identify that career for which you or even your child will have an affinity for. You know, some people, I've actually met some of these individuals, they go to law school, they graduate past the bar, and then they don't practice law. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
And so even if somebody else paid for it, that individual still had to write their own papers, you know, read the books, write the papers, and invest that time. And once our time is spent, it's spent. You can never get it back. So looking at it through the lens of vocational astrology is an approach you can take to save time, like 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah. I think this is so fascinating. I know for me, as I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do in college. So I started out majoring in biology, didn't like all the chemistry work. So then I majored in fashion design for 2 years and loved it. But then I can't even remember why, but I switched to Spanish language and literature and I graduated with a BA in Spanish language and literature. But then I worked in finance for 15 years and now I create global conferences. So it's like, I have a lot of Sagittarius, so I kind of like to learn all the things.
Entonces, yo quiero decirte que es bueno para ti.
Sí, claro que sí. Uh,
Yeah,
well,
so so I get it. And so, you saw part of my bio, I have college degrees in accounting and financial management, which is great. I love it. But what so is now the way things are really shaping up for me, professional astrology and speaking at conferences, even today, this opportunity to be with you, Jocelyn, and share what I have to share with your audience. That is astrology, professional astrology, not professional accounting. Let's be clear.
slight difference between the two.
Yeah, slight difference, slight difference. But it happens. It happens. I mean, just think about it. Had you focused on what you're doing now in college and with, hosting, the conferences that you do, think about how much more progress you could have made.
Yeah, if I had only known.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, I like accounting. I also, teach accounting and finance at a local community college, but astrology, I mean, look, I mean, I have attended international astrology conferences. I have not attended international accounting conferences.
I'm sure the astrology ones are much more interesting.
You meet a lot of I have met just great people. I really have. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's fun. And I really like to go to the conferences. I like to speak, but let's to go and meet people and talk to them, find out where they're from, what do they like, what's their sun sign. I love that.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I have one more question for you here before we
Yes.
close for today. And that is, I know, so 2020 has been quite a year, right? It's been a heavy year. It's been a year with a lot of challenges, clearly, to
Yeah.
say the least, right? And so, this has been a year with Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all together in Capricorn. And so as Jupiter and Saturn are moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius, might be a bit outside the realm of education, but what could you say for us that we could expect for a shift in energies? Like what is going to be different in 2021 as far and versus 2020 that we can see with the astrology here?
I would say a coming together. Obviously, over the past 2 years, the country, the United States, has been very divided, but I don't think that division has been limited to just the United States of America, particularly when we talk about reference COVID-19 and how just across the world, you have some people who say, oh, this is a real thing, it's really happening. And you have another group of people who want to play that down. So I think in 2021, there will be a coming of together where those on both sides of the fence will have to recognize the reality of the situation and really begin to see it the same way, whether you like it or not, so that we can move
Yeah.
forward and make progress.
Yeah.
and not hold ourselves back.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I really hope so. I hope we can come together and move past all this
We,
separation
we,
that we've
we,
experienced this
we
year.
can. I really believe we can. On the front end, Aquarius is the zodiac sign of humanity, the humanitarian,
Mm.
universal brotherhood, universal sisterhood. I mean, I think, and the women empowerment. I mean, as a side note, on Christmas Day, 5 days after the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, they're going to stream Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO. They've never done that. A
Oh,
movie of that scope and scale and budget streaming the same day it's going to come out in movie theaters.
wow.
They're about to make history.
That's incredible. Yeah.
And that's it. And for those who are familiar with the mythology of Wonder Woman, she's about what? Peace, no war, love, no hate.
Yeah.
And that's what will be needed as we move forward into 2021 and beyond. And she represents that. I mean, if you look at the TV show from the 70s with Linda Carter, just listen to that theme song. That is so Aquarian and so humanitarian.
Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that exact thing of, Wonder Woman on Christmas Day. It's really beautiful. And I look forward to feeling that shift, as we move into that and through that more and more.
Mhm. Just a shift in the energy where it's lighter and it's not so me versus you. This
Yeah.
polarization is toxic.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, wonderful. This has been very enlightening, very inspiring to hear from you. So thank you so much, Omari. And
Thank
I
you.
know as a gift to our audience, you're going to select one person to receive a free electional astrology chart reading.
That
So
is correct.
thank
Yes.
you for that.
Yeah, one free electional chart reading. So electional astrology includes when to take a trip, when to have a party, when to get married, and it does happen, when to get divorced,
Mm.
when to start a business, when to launch a website, and when to sell a car, when to buy a car, when to sell a house, when to buy a house. So electional astrology can be used to pinpoint an auspicious time in which the planetary energies are favorable for that particular activity or event.
Okay, wonderful. And so I will include a link right below this video that you'll be able to find where you can fill out a form, submit your name and email address, and you'll be entered in the drawing for that gift. So good luck to everybody. Make sure to go and enter for that. It would be a wonderful gift to win. So thank you, Omari, once again, for all that you've offered here, for this beautiful gift you're sharing with our audience. And yeah, just really appreciate you being a part of the 2021 initiation portal.
You are welcome, Jocelyn, and I am grateful. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great.
Wonderful. Blessings.